In the vast expanse of space, where countless stars burn bright, the Galactic Empire ruled supreme. Its territories spanned across galaxies, its fleets dominated the skies, and its power was unmatched. But even in such a well-controlled empire, there were mysteries, things that didn't quite fit into the neatly ordered systems. One of those things was happening now. On the Empire's main monitoring station, deep in the heart of the capital, alarms blared to life. The staff had grown used to occasional glitches, asteroids, solar flares, and the occasional rebel activity. But this was different. The data coming through was like nothing they'd ever seen before. A ship. But not just any ship. This one was unknown. There were no records of it, no files, no history. It didn't appear on any of the Empire's vast archives, and yet it was there, right in the heart of their territory. The lead officer, Captain Varia, stared at the screen. Her fingers hovered over the controls, but she didn't make a move. "What am I looking at?" she murmured, more to herself than anyone else in the room. The strange ship appeared suddenly, almost as if it had materialized out of thin air. Its shape was sleek, unlike any of the standard designs the Empire had ever seen. It didn't belong to any known species, and its technology seemed far more advanced than anything the Empire possessed. But what was most troubling was its speed. It was moving fast, faster than anything they had encountered. Varia quickly ordered the tracking system to focus in. She needed more details. The ship was heading straight for the capital planet, the Empire's heart, and it was doing so at an astonishing velocity. It wasn't a simple spacecraft moving at regular speeds. No, this ship was cutting through space like a blade through water. "Is it one of ours?" Varia asked, her voice tight with concern. The technician at her side shook his head. "No, Captain. This ship is nothing like anything we've ever built. It's as if it came from nowhere." Her mind raced. She knew the Empire had a stronghold on every galaxy they controlled. Their military technology was the finest in the known universe. If there was something out there that could defy them, it was either a fluke or a threat. And threats meant only one thing: danger. "Can we track it?" she asked, though she already had an uneasy feeling in her gut. The technician punched in a few commands, and the ship's trajectory appeared on the screen. "We're trying, Captain. But it's like it's disappearing and reappearing. Our systems can't keep up with it." Varia's eyes narrowed. She stood up from her seat, walking to the large, glowing map of their galaxy projected in front of her. The ship's location was marked, flashing a bright red. It was moving directly toward them, but it was also flickering, almost as if it were shifting through space, outpacing their radar and tracking systems. How could anything move like this? "Are we sure this isn't a glitch?" she asked, hoping to hear a simple answer. But deep down, she knew that wasn't the case. "We've double-checked everything, Captain," the technician replied. "This is not a malfunction. The ship is real, and it's getting closer." The tension in the room grew thicker. The Empire's military advisors were already on their way to the command center, and Varia could sense the panic rising. The ship, whatever it was defying all their expectations, and no one knew why it was heading directly for them. "Send out a fleet," Varia ordered, her voice cutting through the rising fear in the room. "Get a squadron of interceptors ready. I want them to surround that ship, and I want full scans of its systems, weapons, and anything we can learn. We need answers." The technician worked furiously at his console, sending out the signal to the fleet. "I'm doing it now, Captain," he said, though his voice trembled. But something strange. The ship, it's not responding. It hasn't fired a single shot. It's just moving, like it's being guided by something we can't detect. Varia's heart raced. "Keep trying. We can't afford to be blind." As the fleet was assembled, Varia's mind raced with possibilities. Could this be a new weapon? A test of some sort? Or perhaps a sign of something worse, an enemy they hadn't prepared for, one that had been lying in wait for this moment. But there was no time to consider the options. The ship was getting closer by the second. Her comm unit beeped, and she answered it immediately. "Varia here." "This is Admiral Cowran," came the voice from the other end. It was calm, but there was an underlying edge to it. "We've confirmed that the ship is real, and it's not one of ours. The fleet is ready, but we need to know more. Are we dealing with an invasion force, or is this something else?" Varia's jaw clenched. "I don't know yet, Admiral, but we're going to find out. Get your fleet in position, and prepare for all possibilities." The comm link cut off, and the tension in the room increased tenfold. The unknown ship was almost at their doorstep now. Every second that ticked by felt like an eternity. The crew of the Empire's capital had never been so uncertain. The vast power of the Empire was built on their control of space, on their knowledge, and their military superiority. But now, facing a ship they couldn't understand, they were vulnerable. For the first time in a long time, the future of the Empire seemed uncertain. Varia took a deep breath and steadied her nerves. This was only the beginning. Whatever was coming, they had to be ready. And as the unknown ship drew closer, she couldn't shake the feeling that the Empire was no longer the only power in the galaxy. Something else was out there. Something waiting. And it was about to make itself known. The tension in the room was palpable. The strange ship was heading toward them, and every moment that passed only deepened the mystery. The crew of the Empire's command center had worked tirelessly, analyzing every shred of data, but they were no closer to understanding what they were up against. The ship's sudden appearance in their territory, moving at impossible speeds, was beyond anything they had been trained for. Captain Varia stood near the central command desk, watching the blinking lights on the map as the unknown ship's trajectory continued to advance. The fleet was en route, but they were still hours away, and the ship was much closer than they had anticipated. Every passing second felt like a countdown to something worse, something that none of them could predict. "Any updates?" Varia asked, her voice steady, but with a trace of frustration. The technician at the console gave a shaky nod, tapping his fingers across the controls as he scanned through countless readings. "We've double-checked the ship's position, Captain. It hasn't changed. It's still moving at an extraordinary pace. But that's not the troubling part." Varia raised an eyebrow, leaning in closer. "What is?" He hesitated before continuing. "The ship's signatures are unlike anything in our records. It's emitting a frequency we've never encountered before. Our systems are having a hard time interpreting it. It's as if the ship is masking itself from us. We can't get a clear scan of its composition." Varia clenched her fists. The Empire had vast technological resources, scanners, weapons, shields, and intelligence systems designed to cover every inch of their territory. To have an unknown ship appear on their radar, completely hidden from view, was almost unthinkable. "Try to hack into the ship's communications. Maybe we can get something. Anything that might give us a clue about its origin," she ordered. The technician typed quickly, but after a few moments, he sighed in defeat. "No response. It's like we're trying to communicate with a ghost. The ship isn't transmitting any signals at all. No distress calls, no messages, no information. Nothing." Captain Varia frowned, trying to piece the situation together. The Empire's enemies were many, but none of them had ever been able to hide so completely. No rebellion, no rival faction, no galactic power had the technology to erase their presence from the Empire's surveillance network. Whoever, or whatever, this ship was, it was unlike anything they had ever encountered. She turned away from the command desk, walking toward the large observation window that overlooked the galaxy. Beyond the glass, a sea of stars stretched out into infinity, but her mind was focused entirely on the ship, now just hours away from reaching their capital planet. The rest of the command center continued their frantic work, sending out more probes and dispatching additional reconnaissance ships to try to get closer. But each time, the results were the same. The ship was always just out of reach, always moving in ways that didn't make sense. It would disappear from their radar, only to reappear moments later, closer than before. No one could understand it. It was as if the ship itself was playing some sort of cruel game, deliberately staying just out of their grasp. "We need to stop it before it gets any closer," Varia muttered under her breath. But the thought of stopping a ship they couldn't even track felt like a futile hope. As the fleet continued to move toward the mysterious vessel, Varia called for a meeting with the highest-ranking military officials. She needed answers. She needed a plan. The longer they waited, the more the ship seemed to edge closer to their capital, and no one knew what its intentions were. When the officers finally arrived, their faces were drawn with concern, their eyes tired but alert. Admiral Cowan, an experienced veteran of many galactic conflicts, stepped forward first. "We've assembled a full fleet of interceptors," Cowan reported. "But I'm concerned, Captain. If this ship's speed and stealth capabilities are anything like what our scanners suggest, we might not have the firepower to deal with it. Our ships aren't built for something like this." Varia nodded grimly. "I've considered that. We've never faced anything like this before, and it's possible that this isn't a conventional threat. It could be a scout, one of many, or it could be a probe sent by a power we don't know about yet." "What if it's a test?" another officer asked, his voice tight. "What if we're being baited into making a move?" Varia didn't respond immediately. She had thought about that too. There was a distinct possibility that they were being watched, monitored, perhaps even manipulated. Whoever had sent the ship might be waiting to see how the Empire responded, perhaps preparing for a much larger offensive. The more she thought about it, the more the situation felt like a game of cat and mouse. The ship's lack of response, its impossible speed, and its tendency to evade capture, all of it pointed to something planned, something deliberate. "We have to consider every possibility," Varia said finally. "It could be an attack. It could be a test. Or it could be something else entirely. But whatever it is, we need to prepare for the worst. Continue tracking it, continue sending probes, and get the fleet ready. I don't care if we have to use every weapon we have at our disposal. We will not let this ship reach our capital." As she gave the orders, the weight of the situation began to settle deeper on her shoulders. She knew that the Empire's might had always been enough to crush any threat. But this wasn't like anything they had faced before. The ship was moving too fast, too unpredictably, and their military capabilities seemed powerless against it. "Captain," Cowan said, his voice low, "what if we don't know enough about the ship's purpose? What if it's not here to attack us, but to warn us?" Varia paused, considering the suggestion. A warning. Could that be it? If this ship was truly an advanced vessel with technology beyond the Empire's comprehension, could it be some sort of message from a civilization they had long since forgotten? Or worse, could it be a signal of something far darker, something that the Empire wasn't prepared to face? "Keep tracking it," she said at last, her voice firm. "We'll find out soon enough. And when we do, we'll be ready." The officers filed out of the room, each of them carrying the weight of the unknown with them. But Varia remained at the command desk, her eyes fixed on the blinking red dot on the map. The unknown ship was still out there, moving closer, and with every second, the Empire's grip on the galaxy seemed to slip just a little bit more. And deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of something much bigger than anyone had imagined. Something that would change the course of the Empire forever. The fleet had been deployed. Dozens of sleek, battle-hardened ships surged from the Empire's capital, their engines glowing brightly as they hurtled toward the unknown vessel. Captain Varia stood at the center of the command deck, watching the small, blinking red dots on the map that represented her forces as they moved into position. Each ship in the fleet was a masterpiece of military engineering, armed with the most advanced weapons the Empire had ever created. They had fought in countless battles, faced down rebellions, and crushed entire fleets. And yet, as they raced toward the anomaly, a feeling of unease gnawed at her. The unknown ship was still out there, and it was coming closer with every passing moment. But despite the Empire's vast military power, no one knew what to expect when they finally made contact. Status report. Varia commanded, her voice cutting through the silence of the command deck. Fleet is en route, Captain. Estimated time to intercept, 3 hours, one of the officers reported. His voice was steady, but his face betrayed the concern that everyone in the room felt. Varia nodded, pacing across the deck as she processed the information. They had enough time to prepare, but the unknown ship was still a mystery. There were no signs of weaponry, no indication that it was hostile. Yet, the sheer speed at which it was traveling, combined with its ability to disappear from sensors, made it clear that this ship was not ordinary. It wasn't behaving like any enemy the Empire had ever encountered. She turned to one of her senior intelligence officers, who was sitting hunched over a console, his fingers flying over the keys. Any progress in identifying the ship's technology? Anything that could tell us how it's able to evade our sensors? The officer looked up briefly, his expression tight with frustration. No, Captain. I've tried every method. It's not like anything we've seen before. It doesn't even appear to have any conventional shielding or power sources. It's as if it exists outside the normal laws of physics. At least, that's how it seems through our sensors. We're completely blind. Varia's jaw tightened. How does it move so fast? There's no way it's simply using conventional propulsion systems. We've scanned every known drive system in the galaxy, and none of them could achieve this level of speed. We're looking at something that defies everything we know about space travel, the officer replied. There's a chance this ship's propulsion system is far beyond anything we can comprehend. Or perhaps it's not even using propulsion in the traditional sense. It's more like it's manipulating space itself, bending it to its will. Varia felt a chill run down her spine. The more they learned about the ship, the less they understood. And that made it more dangerous than anything they had ever faced. She knew they couldn't afford to be passive. They had to make contact. They had to know what they were dealing with. But the fear of being blindsided by an unseen force lingered in her mind. Send in the drones, Varia ordered. Get some closer scans. I want to know everything we can about that ship. Its structure, its energy sources, its weapons. We need to understand it before we engage. The drones were the Empire's most advanced scout ships, equipped with stealth technology, and capable of approaching their target without being detected. The fleet's interceptors were still too far away to do anything, so these smaller, faster drones would have to be their eyes and ears. As the drones were launched, Varia turned her attention back to the red dots on the map. The unknown ship was no longer far off. It was closing in. But still, it was moving erratically, jumping in and out of sensor range, appearing to be a step ahead of them at every turn. Have the drones made contact yet? Varia asked. Not yet, Captain, came the reply. They're still on course, but we can't get a lock on the ship's exact location. It's as if the ship knows we're coming and is moving in unpredictable ways to avoid detection. The growing frustration on the command deck was palpable. The Empire's technology was second to none, but it felt useless in the face of this new threat. No one had ever seen a ship move like this, behave like this. It was almost as if the ship wasn't just avoiding their sensors. It was deliberately toying with them. Stay focused, Varia said, her voice calm but commanding. We can't afford to let this ship outsmart us. Keep sending drones. Send more interceptors. We need a full perimeter around it. We'll force it to make a mistake. But deep inside, Varia wondered if they would be able to stop it in time. The more they attempted to corner the ship, the more it seemed to slip through their fingers. No matter how many ships they sent, no matter how many strategies they employed, the unknown vessel seemed to have an answer for every move they made. It was like fighting an enemy that existed outside their understanding of warfare. Then, just as the fleet was about to make its final push, the unimaginable happened. The ship, the one they had been chasing, the one that seemed to have been leading them on a wild goose chase, suddenly appeared in front of them. The ships in the fleet froze, their sensors locking onto the new target. But it wasn't just its sudden appearance that made the officers on the command deck gasp. It was the fact that it was now moving directly toward the Empire's capital planet, at full speed. No longer evading them. No longer hiding. Varia's mind raced. What's it doing? Is it preparing to attack? We can't tell, Captain, came the strained voice of one of her officers. There's no weapon activity. No signs of hostility. But it's headed straight for us. We don't have much time to react. It was happening. The ship, which had seemed like an enigma, a moving ghost, was now coming directly at them. The unknown ship was no longer just a shadow. It was a real, tangible threat. And Varia was running out of options. We need to intercept it now, Varia ordered sharply. Bring the fleet into position. Surround it, but do not fire unless I say so. I want to make sure we understand this ship before we do anything drastic. But as she watched the approaching vessel on the screens, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being led into a trap. Something wasn't right. And whatever it was, the time for answers was running out. The unknown ship, now closer than ever, loomed like a dark shadow over the capital, its purpose still shrouded in mystery. Whatever it wasn't going to stop. And the Empire, for all its power, was at the mercy of whatever came next. Varia's fingers hovered over the command console. One wrong move, and everything could change. The unknown ship was now within range, its massive form appearing on every screen, casting an ominous shadow over the capital. Varia stood at the center of the command deck, her eyes fixed on the looming shape. Despite all their efforts, despite all their resources, the ship still refused to reveal its secrets. It was as if they were witnessing the calm before the storm, a storm they weren't sure they could survive. Report. Varia's voice rang out sharply, cutting through the tension that filled the air. The officer at the communications console snapped to attention, his face pale. Captain, the fleet is in position, but there's still no sign of hostile intent. The ship's been holding steady at the same speed, maintaining its course. No weapons signatures detected. Varia clenched her jaw. And yet it's heading directly toward the capital. How do we explain that? I don't know, Captain. It's as if it's intentionally avoiding confrontation. But it's impossible to predict its intentions. It's not behaving like any enemy we faced before. Varia's mind raced. The unknown ship had shown no signs of aggression so far. In fact, it had actively evaded every attempt to corner it. But now it was barreling toward the heart of the Empire. Its actions didn't make sense, and that was the part that scared her the most. An enemy that didn't follow the usual patterns, an enemy that didn't reveal its hand, was the most dangerous kind. She turned away from the command desk, walking toward the observation window. The distant stars, cold and indifferent, seemed to mock her as the ship grew ever closer. The Empire was used to power, control, and dominance. But this was uncertainty. We have to be ready for anything, she muttered, almost to herself. The fleet was in position, their weapons aimed at the unknown ship, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen, something that none of them had prepared for. Captain, we've intercepted a transmission. A voice broke into her thoughts. It was the communications officer. It's strange. It's not in any known language. Varia's heart skipped a beat. Play it. The officer hit a few keys, and a strange guttural sound filled the room. It was an alien sequence of clicks, hums, and pulses, nothing like any language the Empire had encountered. It was as if the ship was trying to communicate, but its methods were beyond anything their translators could handle. Can we translate it? Varia asked, trying to stay calm. The officer shook his head. Not yet, Captain. We're working on it. But whatever it is, it's not anything we've come across before. Varia felt a deep sense of unease settle in her chest. The ship was trying to communicate, but it wasn't using any technology the Empire recognized. It wasn't even speaking their language. This wasn't just an ordinary encounter. They were dealing with something truly alien, something that didn't fit into the Empire's understanding of the universe. The minutes dragged on, each one stretching longer than the last. As the unknown ship drew closer, the tension on the command deck reached a boiling point. The officers worked frantically at their consoles, trying to make sense of the situation, trying to pull meaning from the confusion. "Do we have any updates on the drones?" Varia asked, her voice tight. "They're still trying to get close," came the reply. "But it's hard to explain. Every time they get within range, they're pulled back. It's as if something is pushing them away. The drones are encountering some kind of force field or interference that prevents them from getting any closer." Varia's mind raced. The unknown ship wasn't just outmaneuvering them. It was actively defending itself against them. The Empire's drones, designed for reconnaissance and stealth, couldn't even get within range of the ship without being forced back. "Increase the fleet's perimeter," Varia commanded. "I don't care if we have to surround it with every ship we have. I want every angle covered. No one gets near it, unless I say so." "Understood, Captain," came the quick response. As the fleet adjusted its formation, the unknown ship finally made its move. Without warning, the ship's engines flared to life, brighter than ever, and it surged forward with impossible speed, darting toward the Empire's capital like a bullet. The shockwave from its movement sent tremors through the command deck, rattling the floor and making the lights flicker. "Captain, it's accelerating," one of the officers shouted. "It's headed straight for the planet." Varia's heart pounded. It wasn't supposed to be moving this fast. Everything they had learned about the ship's movements had suggested a gradual approach, but now it was barreling toward the planet like it had just kicked into overdrive. "Raise the planetary shields. Get the interceptors in position." Varia barked, her voice urgent. "Shields are at full power, Captain, but we're not sure it will be enough. The ship's energy readings are off the charts," came the response. "It's like it's drawing power from nothing." Nothing. The word echoed in Varia's mind. This ship didn't play by the same rules as anything the Empire had ever faced. It didn't need fuel. It didn't need a conventional propulsion system. It had access to energy that was beyond their understanding, and now it was heading toward the capital, as if it had all the time in the universe. "Deploy all interceptors now," Varia ordered, her mind racing. "We can't afford to wait any longer. We have to engage before it reaches the planet." The interceptors shot off into space, sleek, agile ships designed for rapid response. Their weapon systems hummed to life, and the fleet shifted into attack formation, ready to strike. But Varia knew deep down that this wasn't going to be an easy battle. The unknown ship was unlike anything they had ever faced, and its power was something that couldn't be calculated. It was as if the rules of combat had been rewritten entirely. As the fleet closed in, preparing for what might be the first full-scale battle with an enemy they didn't understand, Varia felt the weight of their situation bear down on her. The ship wasn't just a threat to the capital, it was a threat to the Empire's very understanding of the galaxy. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for the future of everything they had built. But even as her fleet prepared to engage, Varia couldn't shake the sense that something much larger was at play. The unknown ship, this mysterious force, was just the beginning. And if they didn't find out what it truly wanted, the consequences could be far worse than any battle they had ever fought. The unknown ship, now barreling toward the capital, seemed to defy every law of physics the Empire had relied on for centuries. As Varia watched it grow larger on the view screen, her mind raced through every possible scenario. She had seen countless battles in her career, witnessed the Empire's might firsthand. But this was something entirely different. This ship wasn't just powerful. It was enigmatic, unpredictable, and seemingly invincible. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission," the communications officer said, his voice tight with uncertainty. Varia's eyes snapped to him. "Play it." Once again, the strange, guttural sounds filled the room, the alien clicks and pulses reverberating through the speakers. This time, however, something was different. Amidst the chaos of the transmission, there was a rhythmic pattern, a sense of purpose. It was subtle, but it was there. It was as if the ship had finally decided to communicate in a way that might actually be understood. "Can we isolate the pattern?" Varia asked, leaning forward, a spark of hope igniting within her. The officer worked quickly, his fingers flying over the console. It's like the transmission is evolving. At first, it was chaotic, but now there seems to be a deliberate structure to it. We're still working on a translation, but we've isolated some of the recurring frequencies. We might be able to decode it soon. Varia nodded, though she was still on edge. The idea that the ship was trying to communicate meant they weren't entirely dealing with a hostile force, at least not yet. But what did it want? Why was it here? And why was it heading straight for the capital? Was it a message, a warning, or something far worse? The officers around her continued their work, inputting data, analyzing the transmission, and preparing for the worst. But Varia couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was slipping through their grasp. Every strategy, every tactic they had used so far had failed to bring them any closer to understanding the ship. And the more they tried to engage, the more elusive it became. "Captain, the fleet is in position, but the interceptors are reporting anomalies," one of the tactical officers said, her voice strained with the stress of the situation. "What kind of anomalies?" Varia demanded. "Shields are flickering," the officer replied, "and weapon systems are locking on but not firing. It's almost like the ship is interfering with our systems. We can't get a clear shot, Captain. It's like it's manipulating our technology." Varia's stomach tightened. The unknown ship wasn't just playing with their sensors anymore. It was toying with their weapon systems, their shields, their very ability to fight back. This was no longer just a ship. It was a force that seemed to be able to bend the laws of their technology to its will. "Increase the perimeter. We need to get a clear shot before it does anything drastic." Varia barked, her voice sharp with urgency. But deep down, she knew it wasn't enough. The fleet, despite its power, was losing control. The ship was moving faster than ever, too fast for them to keep up with, and its presence seemed to be warping the very space around it. Every sensor and system that should have been their advantage was now their greatest vulnerability. "Captain, we've detected a fluctuation in the ship's energy signature," another officer called out. It's charging something big." Varia's heart skipped a beat. "What kind of weapon?" "We're not sure," the officer replied, eyes wide with disbelief. "It's not registering like any known weapon system, but the energy buildup is massive. Whatever it is, it's going to be catastrophic if it reaches full power." Her mind raced as the implications of that statement sank in. The unknown ship had the power to obliterate entire fleets, entire planets. And now, it was preparing to unleash whatever weapon it was charging up. The Empire wasn't just fighting for control, it was fighting for survival. "All ships, prepare for evasive maneuvers," Varia ordered, trying to keep her voice steady. "We need to break its lock before it fires." But even as the command was given, Varia knew it was too late. The unknown ship was moving with a precision and speed that left no room for escape. Its weapon, whatever it was already charged and ready to fire. A blinding flash lit up the view screen as the weapon fired. The sheer power of the blast sent shockwaves through the fleet, shaking the entire ship. Varia was thrown off her feet, her hands grabbing onto the edge of the console to steady herself. The command deck was filled with the sound of alarms, shouts, and the cries of officers trying to regain control. "Status report," Varia shouted, struggling to her feet. "We've been hit, Captain," came the response from one of the tactical officers. "It's a direct hit. Shields are down to 20%. The capital is still in range. The weapon, it's unlike anything we've ever seen." Varia's mind raced. The capital. They had to protect it. The unknown ship had just fired a weapon that could potentially destroy everything the Empire had built. The stakes had never been higher. They were dealing with a threat not just to the fleet, but to the very heart of their civilization. Get the remaining interceptors to engage. Target that weapon. Varia ordered, her voice unwavering despite the chaos around her. We need to stop it before it fires again. But as she said those words, something happened that no one could have predicted. The unknown ship, despite its overwhelming power, suddenly stopped. The energy around it flickered, and then, in a moment of eerie calm, it went dark. The ship, which had been charging its weapon for what seemed like an eternity, was now silent, motionless, as if it had decided to end its assault. "Captain." The ship, it stopped. An officer reported, confusion lacing their voice. "It's just floating there. No movement, no weapons, no energy readings." Varia stared at the screen, unable to comprehend what was happening. Was it a trick? Was this part of the enemy's strategy? The unknown ship had just delivered a devastating blow, and then paused, as if waiting for something. "Status of the fleet," Varia demanded, trying to focus. "We've suffered significant damage, Captain. Several ships have lost power, and most of the interceptors are unable to engage, but we've managed to maintain a defensive perimeter." Varia's gaze never left the motionless ship. What had changed? Why had it stopped? And what did it want? The answers seemed just beyond her reach, tantalizing and elusive. Whatever was happening, whatever the ship's true intentions were, they were far from over. And as Varia stood there, the weight of the situation pressed down on her. She realized one terrifying truth. The unknown ship had only just begun to show its hand. The true battle, the true test of the Empire's might, was still to come. The tense silence stretched on as the unknown ship remained eerily still, hovering in the vast expanse of space, like a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Varia stood on the command deck, her eyes glued to the view screen, trying to make sense of the impossible. The capital was still within range, the fleet was battered but holding its ground, and yet the ship, the very thing they had feared most, had stopped its advance. But why? "Captain, we're still getting strange energy readings from the ship," the science officer reported, his voice wavering with uncertainty. "It's not moving, but there's something. It's like it's charging up again. But this time it's different. It's not like before. It's spreading out, almost like a web." Varia's heart skipped a beat. "A web? What are you talking about?" The officer hesitated. "It's hard to explain, Captain. It's as if the ship is emitting some sort of field. It's subtle, but it's expanding, like it's scanning or probing the surrounding area. We're picking up strange fluctuations in the energy around us." Varia narrowed her eyes, her instincts screaming that this was far from a simple pause. The ship wasn't finished. It was testing something, preparing for its next move. The Empire had never faced an enemy like this, one that could manipulate its environment so thoroughly, one that could make them feel powerless with a mere shift in energy. "Increase the fleet's sensors. I want every inch of space around that ship under surveillance," she ordered. "We need to understand what it's doing." The officers scrambled to adjust the ship's sensors, trying to scan the energy signatures surrounding the unknown vessel. But no matter how many scans they ran, nothing seemed to reveal the full picture. It was as if the ship was actively preventing them from understanding its true capabilities. Varia walked slowly to the observation window, her thoughts racing. The unknown ship had shown its power in bursts, each strike more overwhelming than the last. But now it was playing a different game. It wasn't just threatening them. It was studying them, learning from them. And worse yet, it was doing so without revealing its full intentions. "Captain," a voice broke her reverie. "We've managed to isolate a pattern in the energy fluctuations. It's like the ship is communicating again. But this time, it's different. We can't decipher it. But it's as if it's trying to reach something, someone." "Someone?" Varia turned sharply. "What do you mean?" The officer glanced at his console, confusion still written on his face. "It's not a message per se, but there's something familiar about the pattern. It's like a call, almost like it's trying to connect with someone in particular. not just the fleet. It's not our language, but there's a sense of urgency, as if it's reaching out. The hairs on the back of Varia's neck stood up. What if this wasn't an invasion? What if this wasn't an attack at all? What if they were misinterpreting the ship's actions? What if the enemy wasn't interested in conquest, but something else entirely? The thought made her stomach churn. The Empire had always fought to protect itself from alien threats, believing that any advanced civilization would either submit or be destroyed. But this ship wasn't like anything they had encountered before. It was beyond their understanding, and that uncertainty was more dangerous than any weapon. "Can we send a response?" Varia asked, her voice steady despite the swirling turmoil in her mind. The officer looked uncertain. "We can attempt to transmit, but we have no idea how the ship will react. It's unlike anything we've ever faced." Varia nodded, her mind already formulating a plan. "Try it. We can't just wait and see what happens. I need to know what it wants." The officer hesitated for a moment, then nodded. He began working quickly at his console, sending out a standard transmission meant to establish communication. It was a simple message, nothing aggressive, just an inquiry. But as soon as it left their ship, the entire command deck fell into a tense silence. Minutes passed. The ship remained still, its enigmatic presence hanging like a dark cloud over them. Then suddenly, the unknown vessel responded. The same strange transmission. But this time, there was something different about it. The rhythmic pulses of energy seemed to match the pattern of the fleet's response, as though the ship had understood the message and was now acknowledging it. "Captain, the ship it's responding," the officer said in awe. "It's not the same as before. It's almost like a handshake, if that makes sense. It's not aggressive, but it's not friendly either." Varia leaned forward, a mixture of relief and suspicion battling within her. "What does it mean?" "We're not sure yet," the officer replied. "It's still too complex for our systems to decode fully, but we're getting a clearer picture. The ship seems to be waiting for something, or someone. It's not here to fight us, but it might not be willing to leave either." The words hit Varia like a cold wave. The ship wasn't here for battle, but it wasn't here for peace either. It was waiting. And the question that gnawed at her now was why. What was so important that this ship, this alien force, had come all this way to simply wait? What was it searching for? "Continue trying to decipher the message," Varia ordered. "And make sure the fleet stays on high alert. We don't know what this means yet, but we can't take any chances." As the officers scrambled to make sense of the alien transmission, Varia couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something far bigger than they realized. The unknown ship wasn't just a threat to the Empire. It was a key to something far more significant, something that could change everything. And just as she thought she might have a moment of clarity, the room suddenly shook. The ship's energy signature spiked again, and the once still vessel began to move, its engines firing with a power they couldn't comprehend. This time, it wasn't heading toward the capital. It was heading toward something else entirely. "Captain, it's moving," the officer said, his voice filled with disbelief. "It's not going to the capital. It's moving toward the outskirts of the system, toward the ancient ruins, the ones we thought were abandoned." The realization hit Varia like a ton of bricks. The ship wasn't interested in their capital. It was after something older, something buried, something that had been forgotten for centuries. And if the ship found it, the consequences could be unimaginable. "Set course for the ruins," Varia ordered, her voice firm despite the uncertainty. "We're not letting it reach them first." Time was running out, and the unknown ship was leading them down a path they could never have predicted. And if they didn't act fast, they might not be able to stop whatever it was searching for. The unknown ship now moved with purpose, its destination clear. It was headed toward the ancient ruins, a place shrouded in mystery for centuries. The Empire had once believed these ruins were nothing more than a relic of a long-dead civilization, a forgotten part of history that held no value. But now, with the alien vessel hurtling toward them, it was clear that these ruins held something far more significant, something that the ship was determined to find. Varia watched the screen intently, her mind racing with the possibilities. The ancient ruins had been studied by scholars for years, but no one had ever been able to unlock their secrets. The technologies buried there were ancient, far older than the Empire itself, but none of it had ever been fully understood. If the ship reached those ruins first, it could unearth something that the Empire was not prepared to face. "Captain, we're closing in on the ruins," the tactical officer called out. "But there's a problem. The unknown ship is heading straight for the heart of the site, and it's moving faster than we can manage. We'll never get there in time." Varia gripped the edge of her console, frustration bubbling up inside her. Every moment felt like a lifetime. The alien ship was so close to reaching the ruins, and they had no way of stopping it. If it was what she feared, the ship could unlock powers from those ruins that could tip the balance in its favor. And the consequences for the Empire would be catastrophic. "Increase speed. Push the engines to full power," Varia barked, her voice filled with urgency. "We have to reach them first." The crew scrambled to execute her commands. The ship lurched forward, engines roaring as they tried to close the distance. But the unknown ship, with its advanced technology, seemed to anticipate every move they made. Its energy readings fluctuated, almost as if it were aware of their every step, staying one step ahead. The ruins loomed ahead on the view screen, the jagged structures standing like silent sentinels over a long-forgotten world. Varia couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. There was something haunting about the place, something that felt wrong. But she couldn't afford to hesitate. She had to get there first. "Prepare to launch the drones," Varia ordered, her eyes flicking to the tactical display. "We can't risk letting it get inside those ruins. If we can't reach it in time, we'll need to slow it down." The drones, small and agile, were launched from the ship, speeding toward the ruins with a single mission: to disrupt the unknown ship's path and prevent it from accessing the heart of the site. They raced through the atmosphere, closing in on the alien vessel. But as they neared, something strange happened. The drones began to malfunction, their systems flickering and failing in rapid succession. "Captain," the officer at the drone control station called out, his voice frantic. "The drones are being disabled. It's like the ship has some sort of jamming field around it." Varia's mind raced. The alien ship wasn't just manipulating their technology, it was controlling it. They were playing into its hands, and she knew they couldn't afford to lose this battle. If the drones were down, the only option left was to engage directly. "We have no choice," Varia said, a grim determination settling in. "Prepare the boarding team. We're going in." A murmur ran through the crew, but no one hesitated. Varia's order was clear. There was no more time for tactics or caution. They had to stop the ship, and they had to do it now. A team of elite soldiers was assembled, their gear locked and loaded, ready to board the alien ship and take control of it before it could reach the ruins. As the boarding team made their way to the docking bay, Varia stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the alien ship. The tension in the air was palpable. Every second felt like an eternity. Would they make it in time? Could they stop the ship before it reached the ruins and unlocked whatever power lay within? "Boarding team ready," the operations officer said, his voice steady. "You're clear to proceed." Varia took a deep breath. This was it. She had to trust her team. She had to trust that they could stop whatever the ship was planning. With a sharp nod, she activated the doors to the docking bay, and the team was sent off in their sleek, armored boarding pods, heading toward the unknown. The alien ship loomed closer now, its intricate surface reflecting the light of the nearby stars, an almost surreal sight. Its design was unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered, sleek, sharp, and full of advanced technology that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. But none of that mattered. What mattered now was getting aboard and shutting it down. The boarding pods sped toward the ship, gliding through space like missiles. As they neared the alien vessel, a strange distortion filled the air, a shimmering field that seemed to bend light and space around them. The pods shook violently, and alarms blared as the systems inside the pods began to glitch. "Hold on," Varia shouted over the comms to her team. "Stay with me. We're almost there." But just as the pods were about to dock with the unknown ship, an explosion of energy erupted from the alien vessel, sending shockwaves through space. The force was so powerful that it rattled the boarding pods and sent them careening off course. "Captain, the boarding pods, they're being thrown off course," the tactical officer cried. "The ship's defenses are too strong." Varia's heart sank. It wasn't just a ship. It was a fortress, a weapon of unimaginable power. And they were powerless to stop it. But even as the boarding team fought to regain control, a new voice cut through the chaos. It was not an officer or a member of her crew, but the voice that had been coming from the alien ship all along, the voice that had spoken in strange, unrecognizable tones. This time, however, the message was clear. "We are not your enemy. We have come to awaken." Varia froze, her mind reeling. Awaken? What did it mean? The message continued, now more coherent, as though the ship had decided to reveal its true purpose. "We are the ones who will guide you. You are not alone. The ruins you call lost are only the beginning. The true war is not among the stars. It is within." And with that cryptic message, the ship released its final blow. A massive surge of energy erupted, engulfing the fleet, the entire system. It wasn't an attack. It was a signal, a call to something much larger, something ancient, something that had been sleeping for millennia. And now, it was waking. As the shockwaves rippled through space, Varia could feel the weight of history pressing down on her. The true battle had just begun.